What's up guys, welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh video. In this video I'm going to be going through my upcoming submission to Beckett, which I'm sending off in a few days time. This will be a bit of a longer video, so get settled down, get comfy, and we'll get right into it. So I'm sending off two different submissions. The first one is a 20-day, the second one is a 60-day bulk sub. And I'll start with the 20-day stuff, which is a little higher end. So first up we have the infamous corrected artwork, Dark Paladin. So I'm sure you all know the story behind this card. You had to pull the error artwork from an MFC pack, then send it to Upper Deck, and they would send you this one back, which has the correct artwork from the booster pack. So this one is a pretty nice copy. I picked it up a few years ago. I'm not necessarily expecting a 9.5. The centering is a little bit off both ways, and you probably can't see it on camera, but it's got a few little factory lines and things like that on the back. But I'll be happy with a solid 9, and it may get the 9.5 depending on the grader. Alright, so the rest of the sub for the 20-day is all ultimate rares. So starting with Solo the Duelist, we got the Armed Dragon level 7. This card is getting really hard to find these days, and it's more or less impossible to find a Solo the Duelist card in actually gradable condition just because of how many issues they have out of the pack. This one is nice, but it's got a couple of tiny dots of edge wear around the borders. The back surface is great for a Solo Duelist card, but it does have a tiny bit of stamping. Again, you can just about see that there, I think, the ultimate rare square. Overall, I'm pretty hopeful that it could get the 9.5, but again, it's borderline, and I'd be happy with a solid 9. So the next card is even harder to find than Armed Dragon level 7. We got the Horus level 8, which is really becoming a huge card now. Even raw, I think they cost about $500 for near mint. This one it's nice. It's not quite as nice as the Armed Dragon. You can see the centering is a little shifted. It's got a tiny bit of wear from the pack on the right. The back is actually really good. So it's got a chance, but again, I expect it to get probably just a solid 9. All right, next up, we have a card which in North American print, it's not too difficult to find one of these, but finding a Euro print Doriato is almost impossible. I'd say it's probably the hardest card to find from TLM in Euro print, probably just because it has such an incredibly nice ultimate rare pattern compared to the North American one. So you probably wouldn't normally put this in a 20-day sub, but I'm actually really hyped to get this card graded. It's in pretty much pack fresh condition. It has almost no issues. So I'm expecting hopefully a 9.5 on this, and I'll be extremely happy to own that. Next up, we have 3 different versions of the same card. These are all gold stamp TLM Flame Wingman Ultimate Rares. Obviously the Silver Eye version is much easier to find, and PSA actually still grades them as authentic cards, which obviously most of you know, I imagine they're not. They came from these blister packs which Upper Deck made unofficially and gave to stores like Toys R Us. But these are all the versions you get from the pack. I've got 2 North American prints and 1 European print. This one I've had in my collection for a long time. It's got pretty bad centering, so I don't think it'll get a 9.5. But it is still pack fresh. The other 2 I picked up both this year off a seller on Card Market in Europe. And I did not expect them to be anywhere near as clean for the price I got them for. I paid about 90 euros each. But they both are. This one's European print, this one's North American print. I'm definitely hoping both of these get 9.5s. This one on the right is probably the best card in the whole submission in terms of a chance of getting a BGS 10 pristine. It's got a tiny bit of a shift left to right with the centering, so that could be a 9.5. Everything else is incredibly nice. There's no ultimate stamp or anything like that. So yeah, hopefully both of these get 9.5s, and maybe, just maybe, we get a BGS 10 on the North American one. We have a couple more ultimates from TLM still. These are Ancient Pure Golems. Both of these are European print, which again, it looks far more detailed on the Ultimate Rare than the North American version. One of them, yeah, this one on the right is a little bit shifted, so it's kind of borderline 9 to 9.5. The one on the left is a really nice card. I'm hoping for a solid 9.5 on that. Okay, and we still have a few more Ultimate Rares. First up is Cyber End Dragon from Cybernetic Revolution. This one isn't the as good condition as the rest of the cards I'm sending. Again, I picked this one up this year in Europe, and I think I paid 200 euros for it, so I didn't pay much. It's pretty nice overall, but you can probably see it has a bit of edge wear on the right side and the top side. So I'm thinking edges will probably get something like an 8.5. And hopefully overall it can get a 9, but I'll be happy with an 8.5 as well for what I paid. Next up we have another card I picked up this year. A lot of the cards later on in this submission are cards I had for a long time, but these higher end cards are things I picked up recently. So this is a Euro print Shining Flare Wingman, kind of a fan favorite from GX. It's got a few tiny factory bits of wear around the edges, which almost all European print cards from this era do. But overall, it's a very nice card, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it come back at 9.5, but I'm expecting something like a quad plus 9. Alright, next up is an extremely difficult card to grade. I don't know how many of these exist in gem mint condition, but it's got to be in the single digits for sure. Uria, your Lord of Searing Flames. This is a North American version. I don't necessarily expect it to get a 9.5 because, like most cards from that printing, it is off-center. So I'd expect centering to get a 9. And it also has, I don't know if you can see, a tiny bit of edge whiting on the top. The back is really, really nice. But again, it's probably not going to quite get the gem mint grade. But even a strong 9, I'm happy with for a card like this because it's seriously difficult to find this guy in near mint condition. Okay, that's everything for the 20-day sub. So now we'll get on to the 60-day. Alright, so I'll start with the kind of promo cards, and then move on to the main sets. So I'm sending one card from Retro Pack, which is this Copycat. Retro Pack 1 cards are pretty much impossible to grade, as I'm sure like anyone who's ever tried to do so will know. They were just cut really badly, and the cardstock's extremely brittle, so they pretty much always have wear around the edges and the corners on the back. This one is the best Retro Pack card I've ever owned. It does still have little bits of whitening, but I'm pretty hopeful it can at least get a 9. And even a 9 for Retro Pack cards is really good, so I'd be happy with that. Then I'm sending a few cards from Champion Pack, which I have not done before, but I kind of felt that they were worth sending now because they're worth quite a lot, and they're not easy to find at all in gradable shape. So I'm sending Magician of Faith from Champion Pack 2, which it's a little bit off center, but other than that, the card is more or less perfect. So I'm pretty hopeful we can get that 9.5 grade. And then I'm sending almost every single holo from Champion Pack 1. The only one I'm not sending is the Night Assailant, because unfortunately, my one, even though it came straight out of the pack, I bought these all from a seller who pulled them from a box himself. It has like a factory ding on the left edge, which is pretty bad. Maybe I could get a 9 overall, but it's not anywhere near as good as these other ones. So I'm expecting 9.5s on all of these. And I'm pretty hyped about these two because these cards are unbelievably expensive raw. I think they're like maybe $300 for the Metamorphosis and about 500 for Book of Moon now. So having them in Gem Mint will be pretty cool. Alright, then for Tournament Pack, I actually only have one card to send. I put most of my Tournament Pack stuff that was worth sending in my last sub, which I'm getting back in a few weeks' time. But I thought I'd send this off as well because it's a card I really like, and it's got a shot at the 9.5. The centering isn't perfect, and I don't know if I can show you, but it has, yeah, you can see it there. It's got like a really light factory line along the top border. But aside from that, it's in great shape, so I think it's got a chance, and that's why I'm going to send it. And finally, the last two cards I'm sending, which are kind of promo cards, they're not for main sets, are these two promos from McDonald's Pack 1. They're not worth that much, but these two are in really, really good shape. And they are pretty nostalgic to me, so I wanted to send them in anyway. I think both of them have probably a chance even for the Pristine 10, but I don't expect them to grade that well. I'm happy with 9.5s on both of them. Alright, and then The one kind of in-between card we have, which isn't from a main set, it's not really a promo either, is this unlimited starter deck Yugi Dark Magician. And as you can hopefully see, this is a wavy print. I'm grading a Kaiba Blue Eyes at the moment, so I wanted to have this one to match. I'm not sure if either of them will get 9.5s. This one is a little bit off center, left or right. A lot of them have this exact same centering pattern, and it's pretty clean on the back, but I think it possibly has a couple of tiny dots of edge wear or something like that. So again, I'll be happy with a 9 on this. I think my Blue Eyes is probably going to grade a 9 as well, so it's pretty cool to have them in the same grade. Alright, and then moving on to the main sets, I've kind of ordered this, so I put the secret rares first, then all of the old school holos, and then the ultimate rares. So in order of set, I have a 1000 Dragon from Millerator's secret rare. I'm already grading one of these, but it's a really cool secret, and I managed to pick up another one at a pretty good price this year, so I figured I'd send it in as well. I think it might have a couple of tiny scratches on the back, but overall it's a pretty solid candidate for a 9.5. The centering is actually better than my other one, which I set off before. Then, this is something I picked up a few years back, and I've been waiting to grade it for a long time. I have 4 different Serpent Knight Dragons from Magic Ruler Old First Edition. I found a seller on eBay who had these. I think it was about $10 each. This was maybe 2018, early 2019, something like that. And they were listed as near mint, so I thought I'd give it a shot because it was pretty cheap. And in the end, all 4 of them were just absolutely pack fresh. No wear whatsoever. Some of them have slight centering issues, but they're all actually really, really good. And these are probably, along with that Flame Wingman I showed you earlier, if I'm going to get a 10 in this submission, it'll probably come from one of these Serpent Knight Dragons or that card. So yeah, I'm definitely hoping for 9.5s on all of them, and if I can get a 10, that'd be pretty awesome. Then I also have to match. I don't have as many of them, but I have 2 Blue Eyes Toon Dragons to send off. Both of these are in really good shape, but again, they have centering issues, which is actually pretty unusual for Magic Ruler. But all the copies I've ever picked up of this card have some kind of centering shift. So this one on the right is top to bottom. You can see it's not ideal. And this one is shifted left to right, and it's a little bit tilted as well. So the bottom actually looks okay, but at the top it looks a bit worse. So I think both of these can probably still get 9s on centering. And aside from that, they don't really have any condition defects. So I think I can get at least one 9.5 out of them. And I'm pretty hopeful that both of them can get that. Alright, then next up we have one secret from Magician's Force, Diffusion Wave Motion. I'm actually subbing a Dark Magician Girl as well, but that's already at my buddy's house who's doing the sub. So there's a few cards like that which will be in the sub, but I don't have them here to show you in this video. This card is in pretty good shape. It's got great centering for a Diffusion Wave Motion because they're pretty notoriously off-center. I think this one has a pretty solid chance for a 9.5. It might have a couple of little factory dots or something like that on the back. But overall, I think it's got a good shot because the centering is much better than most. Alright, and then the next 2 cards, I wasn't actually sure about sending because both of them do have little issues on the back and they're not that valuable. But I do really like the secret rares from Dark Crisis, so I thought I'd send them in anyway and see what happens. If they get 9s, I might just put them back in the binder. But both of them have reasonably good chances for a 9.5. They got decent centering, and I think they just have some really light scratches on the back, which I probably won't be able to pick up on camera here. But yeah, they're 2 really nice cards, especially Vampire Lord. I feel it's very underrated as a secret rare. So I wanted to send them in, even though they're not necessarily going to get gem mint grades. Alright, then the last old school secret is a Misera DeVille. I always find it kind of surprising this card is more expensive in a PSA 10 than the End of Anubis, which is kind of usually the more expensive secret rare raw, or at least it used to be. But I can kind of understand it. It's got pretty cool artwork, and I think it's a little harder to grade than the End of Anubis. This one is really nice. It's, I think, a tiny bit off center, top to bottom, but it can probably still get the 9.5 on centering, and I think everything else was solid. Alright, and then I put this here. For the most part, I put the GX cards later on in the sub. but I do have one secret rare from GX, so I put that with the old school secrets. This is a Judgment Dragon from Light of Destruction. This card isn't in the best shape, but I thought it was worth sending in because it has perfect centering, perfect edges, and perfect corners. The only problem with it, which I don't know if I can show you this through the top loader, I think you can see one of them there. It's got some pretty deep scratches on the back. But because of how Beckett's upgrade system works, I figured even if it doesn't get a great surface grade, the other three can probably still bring it up to a 9, and so it was just about worth grading. Alright, and now we're into the old school regular hollows. So I have one card from LOB to send, which is this left leg of the Forbidden One. You can probably see right away, this is wavy print. It's got a pretty lowered title, which I'm always a fan of. And you can see that wavy texture on the foil as well. This card, I really don't know how to expect it to grade. It's 100% pack fresh. I picked it up for $100 earlier this year off eBay. I think the seller was actually from Finland, which is pretty unusual. Who knows how that card ended up there? But it is really nice. But the problem with it is, if you look in the right-hand border, you can probably see it's got a few unusual print dots. That's the main one there. And then there's a slight kind of stain there as well. They're both factory defects, but they are pretty obvious when you look at the card, so I assume they will affect the surface grade quite a lot. As long as the card gets a 9, I'll be happy. If it gets a 9.5, that would be awesome, but I don't know if the surface can get a 9 when it's got those things on it. Okay, and I'm going to try and group the other cards together to get through this a little bit faster, because I don't want this video to run too long. So we have 5 ultra rares from Metal Raiders up next. Most of these are in really good shape. I think these 4 it's pretty safe to assume we'll get a 9.5. Metal Raiders has, I would say, the best print quality of any old school set. The centering is rarely too bad to get a gem mint grade. And they don't really have print lines or anything like that either. So these are all really solid cards. This one I'm a little curious to grade. I'm not going to give this a preview grade. It's basically perfect condition, but it has, I don't think I'll be able to show this on camera. It has a tiny sort of ripple here, which I'm not sure if it's a crease or if it's a factory defect or what, but I'm pretty curious to see how it'll grade. I don't really mind what it gets, but if the grader misses it, it's in absolutely amazing shape, and so could definitely get a 9.5 without that. Then for super rares, I'm not sending many supers from the old school sets, just because it's a bit more expensive than PSA to send to Beckett, and most of them just don't have the value to really justify sending. But I'm going to send the 3K Guardian pieces because they're pretty cool super rares, and I'd like to have the whole set. So these are all really solid cards again, like most Metal Raiders cards are out the pack. I'd expect 395s pretty much from these 3. Alright, then moving on to Magic Ruler, we have a few cards I descended to sub. So obviously you've already seen the Blue Eyes Toon Dragon, and I decided to send all of the other Pegasus cards as well, for the hollows at least. So we have a Relinquished and the 2 Toon Ultra Rares and Toon World. These 3 I definitely expect to get 9.5s. The Relinquished is a little bit off center, so the centering will not be higher than a 9. I'm pretty hopeful it can get a 9, and then if everything else can get a 9.5, it can get the 9.5 overall. But yeah, it's a little weaker than the other cards, and if it gets a 9, it's not the end of the world. Alright, then moving on to PSV, I'm subbing 4 different ultra rare cards from the set. All of these are pretty nostalgic cards to me. I remember I pulled both of these 2 when I was younger. Obviously these aren't the ones I pulled, those are in pretty bad shape. And the Legendary Fisherman is just a really iconic card. I love the artwork. It's a shame they censored the spear. I always thought that was pretty silly, but even so, I think it looks nice. And finally, I'm going to send a Call of the Haunted. Again, it's a pretty iconic card. I used to run this in a lot of decks when I was younger. So yeah, all of these cards are nostalgic to me, so I wanted to send them in. And from what I remember, these all have really solid shots of the 9.5. I don't think these really have any kind of wear. Some of them have slight centering issues. I think the Legendary Fisherman is a bit off center, but it's really not bad at all. So yeah, again, I'm hopeful for 9.5s on all of those. Alright, moving on to Labyrinth of Nightmare. Again, I'm sending a few ultra rares. The supers from this set are kind of hard to grade as well because of the centering issues, but I just didn't quite feel like sending them in this sub. I might send them in a future sub, depending on how I feel. But for this sub, I'm sending Destiny Board, the two Equip Magic Card Ultras, which are really nostalgic to me. I pulled this as a kid, and I think I was the only guy in my school who had it, so it was a pretty powerful card to have back then. And finally, Mask of Restrict, which again is one of the more iconic Ultras from Labyrinth of Nightmare. My favorite card from this set is definitely Dark Necrofear, but I'm already sending that in a different sub, which is coming back soon. So if these all grade 9.5s, which I think they all should, then I'll have pretty much every graded card from Labyrinth of Nightmare that I want. The only other one is maybe a Masked Beast, but the one I have is 2 off center left to right to really be able to get a gem grade. And then I have just a few more Ultras I'm planning to send from later sets. So I have a Dark Ruler or Hades or Hades, I never really know how you say that one, which I pulled myself actually in 2018. I bought, I think it was 4 first edition 36 pack LOD boxes from a seller in Belgium. And it was the last 4 boxes he had from a case. They were, I think, about 230 euros each, I want to say, something around that mark. And he contacted me after I bought the boxes because he actually realized that the final box he had was not sealed, but it was actually already open, and I think it was missing 1 pack. So he agreed to give me, I think he refunded me nearly all the money for that box and sent me the box anyway. So I paid like less than 100 euros for the whole box. So I decided to kind of try and scale the packs and open them. And I actually got pretty good pulls from it. I got a Lily, which was way off center, so I'm not going to send that. But I got this Dark Ruler, which is really decently centered for Legacy of Darkness. It might even be able to get a 9.5 on centering. And I also got a Tyrant Dragon, which has pretty similar centering. I think it's a little bit worse, which I sent in my last submission. So that was a pretty fun box to open. I don't open things very often because it doesn't really make financial sense. But when something like that comes along, you can't really turn it down. All right, then I'm sending 3 Ultras from Magician's Force. These are really tough cards to grade. The whole set, I think, is really underrated in PSA 10, 9.5 kind of condition. Just because it has centering issues to begin with. So yeah, this one you can see is kind of more typical MFC centering left to right. They're also all a little bit tilted, every card in the entire set. So that makes them tougher to grade. They also have, I don't think I'll be able to pick it up on camera, but I think the XYZ that I'm sending has a few little print dots and things like that here and there, which again is pretty common. But all 3 of these I think have a pretty solid chance to get a 9.5, particularly the Chaos Command Magician I'm very hopeful for. And the final old school Ultra I'm sending is this Skull Archfiend of Lightning. I just really like this card. I think it's kind of underappreciated, and so I wanted to send mine in. It's got great centering, great edges and corners. I think it has a few really light scratches on the back, but nothing that would knock the surface below a 9. So I figured I'd send it in and get that 9.5. So that was the end of the old school sub. Now I'm going to go into the GX stuff I'm sending. Obviously I already showed you the highest end ultimates at the beginning of this video in the 20-day sub. But a lot of these cards are actually incredibly tough to find in gradable shape as well. So obviously I'm sending the level 8 in the 20-day, but I'm also sending a level 4 and a level 6. These are in better shape than the level 8 I'm sending. I looked for a long time to find gradable versions of both of these, and eventually I got there. So again, these don't have any of the issues which Soul of the Duelist cards normally have. I think the level 6 has a couple of tiny dots of edge wear. But I'm pretty hopeful that both of these can get a 9.5. I think the level 4 is maybe even a quad or better. It's really, really nice for Soul of the Duelist card. Then obviously I'm sending the level 7 in the 20-day, and I'm also sending a level 5 in the bulk sub. Again, this is a really tough card to find, really tough card to grade. Pretty much everything in Soul of the Duelist is. I think I'd say it's the hardest set to grade out of all of old school Yu-Gi-Oh! At least from my own experience, because they just have so many issues straight out of the pack. I'd say it's even worse than Rise of Destiny and Flaming Eternity that came afterwards. This one again is really solid, great centering. I think it might have, I can't even remember, there might be something around the corner there. but overall pretty solid 9.5 candidate. Okay, then I'm sending two different Mobius the Frost Monarchs. Both of these are really great condition. Again, I probably expect them both to get 9.5s. I've had both of these in my collection for a long time. Mobius has always been a card that I liked. Obviously, Monarch decks back in the day were a pretty big thing. I think the artwork is really nice as well. So I wanted to send them both in. I think they can both get 9.5s. One of them is definitely stronger than the other. I think this one on the left. But yeah, they're both great cards. These are the best two Mobiuses I've ever found over the years. Okay, then the next two cards I'm actually pretty excited to send. In my opinion, these are two of the most underrated cards in the whole of Yu-Gi-Oh! They're not really like serious ultimate rares. Obviously, they're both just retail. But if you go out there and you try and find either of these cards in gradable condition, I guarantee you will not find any. It took me literally years to find a single like proper near mint to mint version of either of these. And they're getting pretty expensive now as well, but I think the price is well deserved because you cannot find them. So yeah, both of these I'm really excited to send off. I think again they've both got great chances for a 9.5. The centering on Master of Oz is a little bit off, but I don't think it's anything that will knock it below a 9. And Ajama King is just really all-around solid. And the last card I'm sending from Soul the Duelist is another one of those Ultra Ultimates, which are much harder to pull than the Supers. I think this card is really underrated as well. It has incredible artwork. It looks great in Ultimate Rare. This one is really nice condition again. I'm thinking it should be a 9.5. I think the centering is a little bit off, but it's really not bad. And I don't think the card has any edge wear or corner wear, which is it's really tough to get for Soul the Duelist. Even right out of the pack, these cards normally have like whitening, all sorts of stuff like that. Alright, then for Rise of Destiny, I'm not sending too much, because obviously the value is a lot lower because of how much of it they printed. But I'm going to send a couple of Dekoichis, which I think it's a really cool card. It looks great in Ultimate Rare, and it's pretty hard to find in actually gradable condition. And I'm sending off one copy of the Creator, which is a card. Again, I had to look for a long time to finally get one of these that I could grade. I think this one came from eBay last year. I paid about $25 for it, something like that. I don't think it has any of the stamping issues on the back, maybe a tiny bit, but it's a lot less bad than all of the other ones I've owned, so I'm pretty hopeful it can get that 9.5. Okay, and then moving on to FET, we have another cover card. Unlike the Creator, this one isn't in the best of shape. It's still pretty good as far as the Sacred Phoenix goes, but it does have a little nick up here on the edge, as well as other bits of edge whitening. The centering isn't perfect, and I think the back maybe has some stamping issues as well. So I'm pretty hopeful it can at least get a 9, which I'll still be happy with for now, but I'll have to look for another one of these in better shape in the future. Okay, then I got one more monster card from Flaming Eternity. This is another one that's really hard to grade. I'm not sure if there are any Gem Mint copies out there at the moment, graded already. This one has a great shot at it. I don't think it really has anything wrong with the condition. So that'll be pretty cool. I think it's a nice artwork, pretty cool pattern on the Ultimate. So I'll be happy to have that as a gem. Alright, then we have 3 spell cards from Flaming Eternity. I really love the spells from this set, even some of the others which I'm not subbing, like Spiral Spear Strike, and I think there's like Meteor Destruction as well. They all have just like beautiful artwork, beautiful patterns on the Ultimates. Feather of the Phoenix is one of my favorite Ultimates from the whole of GX. I just think it looks incredible. These are all in really good shape. I'm hoping again for a 9.5, probably on all 3 of them. They've got good centering, and I don't think they have any like bad issues on the back or anything like that. None of the waxing or stamping that you normally see. Then moving on to Fusion Monsters from Flaming Eternity. I'm sending both of the big boys, King Dragoon and Gatling Dragon. It's pretty surprising. This card used to be cheap, King Dragoon, but it really shot up. I think it was last year. So now it's probably the most expensive Ultimate in the whole set, at least as a raw card. And Gatling Dragon is pretty expensive as well, pretty hard to find. Both of these are really nice. I think King Dragoon is a little shifted top to bottom, but it's not bad at all. Gatling Dragon has great centering. And again, they don't have stamping or any of those things which really impact the grade. So hopefully 2 more 9.5s there. The last card from Fleeting Eternity is going to be a Deck Devastation Virus. It's a pretty cool card. I've always really liked it. The artwork is cool. And again, it's just really tough to find this card in genuine near mint condition. I've owned, I think, probably at least 3 to 4 other first edition Ultimate Rares, and nearly always they have edge wear or corner wear or something like that going on with them. This one is really good, so again, hopefully a 9.5. Yeah, and maybe even a quad. Okay, now we're moving on to the actual GX sets. So first up, pretty iconic card, Wing Karibo. This is also a pretty hard grade. Most of TLM isn't too difficult, but Wing Karibo, in my experience, has a lot of issues. This one is a little shifted top to bottom, but I think it can still get the 9 on centering, and everything else is pretty nice. Then we have a couple of Ancient Gear Beasts. It's just a retail ultimate, but it's pretty cool. I'm sending 1 North American, 1 European version. And this card is a great demonstration of just how much nicer the patterns on the Europrint TLM cards are than the North American ones. It's more noticeable for this set than probably any other set. So if I put them in the light, you can see the one on the right has a little bit of pattern, but it's pretty minimal. Whereas the Europrint on the left just has so much going on all over the foil. So yeah, I'm subbing 2 of these to go with the 2 Ancient Gear Golems that I'm already sending in the 20-day, because I thought those would make a pretty cool set. While I'm going through these ultimates, I just wanted to say, by the way, thanks to everyone who watched my first few videos. I didn't really expect to get much of a response, but in the end, they got plenty of views, and I even had people messaging me on Instagram just saying that they thought it was great content, they really appreciated it, they wanted to see more. So yeah, thank you to everyone who did that. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me because I put so much time into those videos, and I really wasn't sure if anyone would even watch them. But in the end they did, so that's awesome. And moving back to the cards, we got a Reshef the Dark Being from TLM. This again, it's not too difficult to grade, but it's a really cool card, and this one's in great shape, so I thought it was worth sending. And then I have 3 different Thunder Giants from The Lost Millennium. I have 2 European prints, which are these ones on the right, sorry, and 1 North American print. This is one of the less noticeable cards from TLM for the differences, because the Euro prints do look a little bit better, and the stars definitely pop more, but the North American print actually looks pretty great for this card as well, so I don't think it's as big a difference as, say, Doriado or the Ancient Gear Beast I just showed you. All 3 of these are in great shape, which is why I'm sending them. I think the North American one should definitely get a 9.5, and one of the European ones definitely should. I don't know off the top of my head which is which, but one of them has, yeah, I think it's this one on the left, just a couple of kind of, I don't know, factory dots on the back. They're kind of like white spots, but they are just from the factory. They're nothing to do with wear or anything like that. So hopefully 2 9.5s and then maybe 1 9 to round the trio out. Alright, then we got a few spell cards. Card of Sanctity and Brain Control. Again, both of these Europrint, they just look incredible. I'm a big fan of Card of Sanctity. I think this card's pretty underrated. It only costs about, I think like $15 raw. And it's a pretty iconic card from the anime. I don't really see why it's not a bit more than that. They're not easy to find in really good shape. Brain Control is a bit more expensive. This one is pretty shifted top to bottom. So that might be an 8.5 on centering, which I'd be okay with. The rest of the card is still great, so it can definitely get at least a 9. And the Card of Sanctity is in really great shape and has good centering, so I'd definitely expect a 9.5 from that one. Oh, and it looks like I put them in out of order slightly. I thought I had one more Reshef, and I do. This one is a Europrint. Again, pretty awesome looking card. I love the really deep, rich colors they used for the European printing of TLM. I just think they pop incredibly nicely for most cards. Okay, and then moving on to CRV. I'm not sending many cards from this set. Just two European print cards again, one Bubble Man, one Cyber Twin Dragon. I think the Bubble Man should be able to get a 9.5. It's in great shape. It has maybe a couple tiny dots around the corners, which again they pretty much all have from the factory for Europrint cards. And the Cyber Twin Dragon has a chance at a 9.5, but I think it has a few tiny issues down here, bottom right back. So if it gets a 9, I won't be too disappointed with that. It's still a really cool card and pretty hard to find even in 9-worthy condition for a Europrint. Right then, for Elemental Energy, I'm sending quite a few cards actually. I've already showed you the Shining Flare Wingman in the 20-day, but I'm sending quite a few for the bulk sub as well. So first up is a Europrint Blade Edge, which is a really nice card in Europrint. I love that pattern, kind of lines going horizontally and diagonally as well. This card is not easy to find again in good shape, especially Europrint. I think it's pretty underrated. It only costs maybe 40 bucks raw, which is a lot less than the other heroes in this set. And even though I can see why it's less than them, I don't think it should be that much less. So again, this one hopefully is a 9.5. I think again the corners might have a little bit going on with them, but nothing too bad. Then I'm sending one of my favorite ultis from this set, Water Dragon, which is one of these cards. Not many people talk about it, but if you go out there and you try and find a near mint copy, which is good enough to grade, you pretty much won't find one, or at least it'll take a long time. This one has some centering issues, which most of them do, but I don't think it's bad enough that it cannot get a 9 on centering, and the rest of the card is in really great shape. So I'm hoping it'll probably just be a basic 9.5, but I'll still be happy with that for this card. Alright, and then moving on to the kind of big boys from the set, the fusions. I'm sending one V to Z Dragon Catapult Cannon. Again, this is just a really cool card. I love the way it looks in Europrint. I think it's definitely in good shape. It's got at least a shot at the 9.5. Centering on the back is a little bit shifted, but not too bad. And I think the edges and corners are pretty solid as far as Europrint cards go. So hopefully another 9.5 there. Then I'm sending 2 of each of these heroes. So I'm sending 2 Rampart Blasters and 2 Wild Edges. All 4 of these cards are the European print again. None of these are in perfect shape, so I don't know if I'll get any 9.5s here. Hopefully all 4 of them can get 9s. I think one of the Wild Edges has some pretty bad stamping on the back, so that one may struggle. But the other 3 should definitely get 9s. And I'm hopeful for the better of the 2 Rampart Blasters and Wild Edges, that they can just about get through to the 9.5. But if they don't, I can understand that and I can live with it. Okay, and then I have one more card from Elemental Energy, which is a Pot of Avarice. Again, pretty cool ultimate. These are really expensive now, raw. I think they're like $100 to $150 range, somewhere like that for near mint. And again, they're not easy to grade because they have been played a lot. This one is, again, Europrint, and it's in pretty solid shape. I don't think the edges and corners have any issues on the back. I think there's one. I don't know if I can even pick it up on camera. I think there's one dot of whiting on the front edge, but overall, really solid card. Definitely hoping for a 9.5 on that one. And we're pretty much to the end of the Ultimate Rares now because I didn't send any from the later sets. I do have some to grade, but I think I'll just send them in a future submission because I didn't want this sub to be too big. It's already about 100 cards even without any extras. But I have a few from Shadow of Infinity. So I'm already sending Cyber Twin Dragon and Cyber End Dragon. And I wanted to kind of have the full set of them. I sent a Cyber Dragon in my last submission. So I'm sending one Cyber Barrier Dragon, one Cyber Laser Dragon. This one is Europrint on the right. This is a North American print. Shadow of Infinity is one of the hardest sets to grade. Mostly because, all sets are tough to grade in Europrint, but the North American versions of these cards, the Hobby Ultimates that is, they nearly always have centering shifts, and usually they're pretty bad. So this one is, I'd say, better than average, but it's still probably only going to get a 9 on centering. So I don't know if this can get a 9.5 overall because of that. It's in good shape, but it's not literally perfect, so it'll struggle. but I'm hoping it can get a 9.5, and if it doesn't, it's still better to have a strong 9 than to have a raw card, so I'm happy with that. And the Cyber Laser Dragon, this is in amazing shape for a Euro print. It does have stamping. I mean, this is actually less bad than most of them I've had. Normally it's really, really bad for this card and for a lot of Shadow of Infinity. So I think it has some kind of chance at the 9.5, but again, I'm not too sure because of that stamping. And the final ultimate is a Demise King of Armageddon. This again is a North American print, and you can see it has that same centering issue left to right. This one is about as good as you can find for Shadow of Infinity, but it is still off. Probably a 9 on centering, maybe a 9.5 if it's lucky. The back is in great shape though, so I'm pretty hopeful this can get a 9.5 overall, even if it's a basic. Okay, and then the final two Yu-Gi-Oh cards in this submission are two Ghost Rares from later on in GX. I subbed the other GX Ghost Rares in my last submission, Honest and Rainbow Dragon, because those were in better shape than these. But I figured even if these can just get a 9, that's still pretty solid. They have little scratches on the foil, and I think they have little issues on the edges and corners. And Chaos Neos, which is my preferred one of these two, also has, I don't know if I can pick it up, it's got a weird factory line running down the foil. I don't know if you can see it there or not, around the left hand part of the foil. So these are definitely some of the less good condition cards I'm sending in the sub, but because Ghost Rares are so hard to grade, and these do definitely have at least a shot at a 9, I figured they were worth sending anyway. Okay, so we've reached the end of the Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know if I'm going to put Pokemon in the title of this video because the vast majority of the video is just about Yu-Gi-Oh! But I do actually have a few Pokemon cards to send as well. I haven't collected Pokemon for absolutely years. I think I pretty much stopped collecting in 2010, but I never sold my collection, which I had from back in the day. And with how expensive some of these cards are getting now, I figured I should probably grade a few of the more expensive ones. So I sent off already my dogs from this set because they were in better shape than the Ho-Oh, and I think they had a chance to get a gem. But I'm sending off the Ho-Oh in this up because even as a 9, this card is pushing, I think, $500 plus, which is kind of crazy to me. I bought this card as part of an entire collection about, I don't know, 11, 12 years ago, which obviously is a completely different era for collecting cards. But I bought the whole collection, which had this. It had those other first edition legendary dogs that I already sent off in my last sub, and it had some other holos as well, all first edition. I bought the whole collection for about $25 back in the day, which is crazy to say now with how expensive these cards are. This one, I don't know if I can catch it. It's in great shape, but it does have a, I think you can see a little bit of it there. It has a very light factory line running horizontally across the whole card. And I think it has a tiny bit of whitening around the corners as well. So I'm only expecting a 9 on it, but with how expensive they are now, I thought even as a 9 I had to send it. Alright, and then I have one more card which I also bought a few years ago, a long time ago now. This is one of my few Pokemon holos which I think can actually grade gem in, so that's why I'm sending it. The holo is incredibly nice compared to most of mine, and I don't think it really has much wear, so I'm hoping this can get gem in. I don't think the population's that low or anything, but with how Pokemon is at the moment, I figure even then it's going to be worth a decent amount. And the final few cards I have for this submission, these are actually all cards that I pulled myself. So way back in the day, I think this is probably 2008. That was when I mostly collected Pokemon. I didn't collect Yu-Gi-Oh! That much. And back then, the sealed boxes of this stuff, especially on auction, you could get them at prices which, when you look at how expensive they are nowadays, you really cannot believe that they went up that much. So I opened this from a Team Rocket first edition box that I bought back in the day, and I paid for that box $80 US. That was including shipping. So it's just insane to think of how much they're worth now compared to what they were worth at the time. And I definitely would have done better if I kept them sealed, but you know, that's how it is. I don't have any regrets about that. They were good fun to open. I'm not sending most of the rocket hollows I pulled just because they're probably 9s and they're not worth that much as 9s. But I figured I'd send this guy. That was the best pull I got from the box. It was a pretty bad box because I didn't get the Charizard, the Blastoise, or the Raichu secret rare card. So yeah, it was very disappointing at the time. But at least this guy's in pretty good shape. I think he's actually got an outside shot at a 9.5. But definitely at least a solid 9. And the holo again is really nice. And the final 3 cards, these are from an insane box that I opened. So again, around the same time, probably 2008, 2009, I used to just look out for whenever I could find cheap boxes going and try and win them on auction. I won this box, I think it was from maybe Singapore, maybe Thailand, somewhere in Asia. And the cost of the box was $70, including shipping. So again, when you put that next to how much the boxes go for nowadays, it's it's pretty crazy to think. But yeah, I bought this box and I opened it, and I actually pulled 19 different holos from it, including every holo in the entire set. So it's one opening I wish I'd put on camera because I've never seen that done by anyone else in any Pokemon opening I've seen. Not just kind of getting an error box in terms of how many holos there were, but actually getting every single holo in the entire set, as well as, I guess, 3 duplicates it was. Unfortunately, most of the cards from this box were really, really, really bad condition. They just had so much silvering around the edges. You can see even on these ones I'm sending, pretty much all 4 edges have some silvering. So I'm not expecting fantastic grades from these. The Jolteon is definitely the best condition, and this one should at least be a decent 9. The other 2, I kind of wanted to get them as a set of 9s, so I figured I'd send them in. They're not too bad. I think the corners are actually pretty good. The edges have some kind of cut issues, and they have all that silvering on the front as well. But they do have clean holos, so I figured I'd send them in, see what happened, and hopefully they can get a gem mint grade. I don't know. Sorry, a mint grade, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. And that being said, we have finally reached the end of this BGS submission video. So thank you everyone for watching the video. If you stuck around to the end, congratulations. That's a pretty significant achievement seeing how long this video was. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Anything you feel like doing would be much appreciated. I'll do another video when this submission comes back, which I assume will be quite some time from now, with everything that's going on in the world at the moment. But you never know. I'll post the video whenever it comes back. And I also have another submission which I sent out, I think in January, which will be coming back pretty soon. So again, I'll make a video when that comes back. I didn't make a submission video for that, unfortunately, so you won't be able to compare kind of what I predicted compared to what happened. But there's a lot of great cards in there, so it should be good anyway, hopefully. So yeah, thanks for watching everyone, and stay tuned for more Yu-Gi-Oh videos.